I said I feel invincible. It's 100 niggas in the spot. It's 85 just to walk on. I don't talk to these niggas, cause a lot of these niggas be corny. I'm feeling horny, and I shoot like Robert Horry. I don't just percolated shit, I got a percolated bitch. I give it a
Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Second Take. My name is Saif, and in today's video, I'll be going through the biggest all-star snubs of the Western Conference. Vishwa has already made a video on the biggest all-star snubs of the Eastern Conference, so be sure to check it out. Now, before I get into the actual video, I'd like to mention that me and Vishwa were talking about what players to add to the Western Conference list when we came up with the conclusion that overall, the Western Conference doesn't really have any actual snubs. It was just a fact in reality they didn't have enough spots. In this video, I'll start by talking about the starters who made it for the Western Conference, then transitioning into the reserves and telling you, as my opinion, who I think should have made it and who shouldn't. Then in conclusion, I'll be heading to the actual snubs portion of the video. As I mentioned earlier, there aren't any specific snubs, with just entirely not enough spots. Now, to get into the video, the Western Conference starters include Luka Doncic, Steph Curry, Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, and finally Nikola Jokic. After the starters were released this past week, many NBA fans had an issue with the fact that Doncic was starting over Damian Lillard, who was leading at the time the 18-10 Trailblazers. As many of you might disagree with me, but I actually agree with the fact that Luka is starting due to the fact that he's been carrying the bum Mavericks team in his third year in the league, averaging nearly a triple-double. Even though the Mavericks are currently sitting with a 15-15 record, they are still in position to make the playoffs or the play-in tournament as long as they become more consistent. Other than that, there really shouldn't be an argument for anyone else on the starting lineup. Now, heading into the reserves of the Western Conference, the selections include Damian Lillard, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, Paul George, Anthony Davis, who is being replaced by Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and Zion Williamson. Out of the players I just announced, the players I think can be replaced are CP3 and Anthony Davis, who just got replaced as I'm recording this by Devin Booker. Some of you guys might say Zion Williamson, but in my opinion, I disagree with this because in all honesty, Zion has been extremely underrated this season, and someone who's averaging 25, 7, and 3 without getting any attention it just isn't right. I'd also like to add on Devin Booker. As I mentioned earlier, is replacing Anthony Davis. The thing about Booker is he might not have the same numbers as James Harden or Damian Lillard, but without him, the Suns would definitely take a big drop overall. And something to note is that Devin Booker, both years he's made the All-Star by replacing someone, and there's no hate intended towards Booker, as personally he is one of my favorite players, but it is something to note as it seems like most coaches like to prefer someone else over him. This leads me to my main portion of the video, in which I'll be talking about the snubs of the Western Conference. This list will include Brandon Ingram, Christian Wood, DeMar DeRozan, Mike Conley, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. To start, I'll be heading to Brandon Ingram. About 1 year ago, Brandon Ingram made his first All-Star appearance representing the Pelicans in the 2020 All-Star Game as a Western Conference reserve. While Ingram wasn't selected by the coaches this time around, there's a chance he could be added at a later date as an injury replacement because his numbers are incredibly identical to last year's campaign. Brandon Ingram has definitely been a spark for this Pelicans team, who has fallen into a deep hole after AD went to the Lakers. He and Zion definitely have the potential to lead this team somewhere if the Pelicans continue to build a good supporting cast around them, as they are still a young team with a new head coach and tremendous talent. Also, I have a Lakers friend and he says that he's pretty irritated the team went with Kyle Kuzma and let Jordan Clarkson and Brandon Ingram go, as they turned out to be viable players for their teams. Next, I have Christian Wood, who has had major success since coming to Houston. Christian Wood is the starting center for the Houston Rockets when healthy and has tons of talent, as though he's only at the age of 25 and still has tons of time to grow. He has made a significant impact on this Houston Rockets team as a whole, as they're currently on an 8-game losing streak, and it's shown that the Rockets are significantly worse when Wood is not playing, and they don't have a proper big man to back him up. This season, Wood is averaging 22 points and nearly 11 rebounds with an amazing PER of 24. Wood before the season was bouncing around teams and not really earning a spot on the roster after multiple one-season tenures. It seems he has found a legitimate home in Houston, and as I stated earlier, he has tremendous potential as he's only at the age of 25. Next up, I have DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan, since being traded to the Spurs, has been pretty irrelevant. It's not due to his play or anything, it's just the fact he was traded in exchange for Kawhi Leonard, and all the attention has been towards him. DeMar DeRozan currently is a starting small forward for the San Antonio Spurs, who is recently having success as they are currently sitting with a 16-11 record, which accounts for the 5th seed in the Western Conference. DeMar DeRozan is averaging 19 points, 5 rebounds, and 7 assists, a game while shooting about 49% from the field. This season, I think he could have deserved a nod to the All-Star game due to the fact, as I mentioned earlier, he is leading the Spurs team to success, something they've lacked in the past couple of years, and he's a good mentor for the young players they have on the roster. Not only are the Spurs succeeding with DeRozan, but his relationship with legendary coach Greg Popovich is getting closer than ever. I wouldn't be surprised if this team makes the playoffs and pulls off a surprise upset over some team, possibly in the first round, or even making it past more. Moving on to the fourth player on this list, which is Mike Conley. We all know the tale of Mike Conley, a consistent player who is yet to make an All-Star game in his 14 seasons in the NBA. A few different factors have conspired to prevent Conley, a long staple of successful Grizzlies team and now successful Jazz team, from becoming an All-Star, as I mentioned earlier, in his 14-year career. From 2012 to 2013, though the end of Conley's time there, Memphis has ranked higher than 26th in the league of pace. In 2018 to 2019, his best scoring season on per possession basis, the team was the slowest in the league, and the style dampened Conley's counting stats, which is the first destination for most voters. More broadly, players who contribute in a variety of different areas and rate well by advanced metrics like Conley tend to receive less All-Star attention than most players who excel in a couple of the big statistical categories do. Since 2010 to 2011, Conley's first big season, 9 Western Conference point guards have made at least one All-Star roster, and Conley is a better defender than all of them except for Chris Paul, but he is almost behind all of them on offense. Also, this season, Mike Conley is averaging 16 points, 4 rebounds, and 6 assists while shooting 42% from long range. This might not sound eye-popping to most people, but it is pretty significant, as this Jazz team is the number 1 in the Western Conference, who are with a record of 26-6 and don't seem like they're going to be stopped by any team soon, as they have really built a good chemistry and have amazing ball movement led by their star point guard Mike Conley and his veteran presence. Moving on to the final player on this list, which is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Now, before I get into this one, I'd like to mention the fact that we'll be going off the narrative where good players putting up good stats on a bad team shouldn't have made it. Out of all the players I've mentioned that could have been counted as quote-unquote snubs, he is the least likely to make it. Like Visho said in his video about Vucevic is putting up empty stats for a struggling Magic team, which is a similar situation which Shai is in right now. Shai is a very talented player, don't get me wrong, but he is putting up 24, 5, and 6 with a low-end Thunder team. I definitely think he can be a future All-Star if the Thunder continue to have good players around him that can definitely support him as well, and he can definitely lead this team to future success. Also, as I'm recording this, Shai recently dropped 42 on the Spurs in a thriller of a game, but is unfortunately too late to take into account as the All-Star players have already obviously been decided. That's all I have for you guys today. I know this one is a shorter video than usual, but we will be coming up with more bangers in the future, so be sure to check it out. And as for this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and until next time, peace.